Hey, can you hear me? I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Really? It's you, man. You're not coming across with any audio. You're wearing those headphones again, aren't you? You got to do something with yours. Nope. Can anybody in the audience? We can hear Mickey. All right, cool. All right, so you can. Good morning. We can't hear you. Costa, we can't hear you, man. It's those headphones. For some reason they don't come across. I have you unmuted on the stream.
Hey.
There he is.
Bloody damn.
You sound like a robot. Try now.
Right now. Better.
What the crap?
We log in.
All right. Oh my gosh. All right. So listen, as Costa fixes his stuff, like what we're gonna do is we're gonna re-engineer yesterday. I've got to take my daughter to school for an early activity, so I will be coming back on around 7:30 to do the highest probable. Costa, try talking now.
Hello.
There we go. Oh my gosh, that was wild. So because I have to take my daughter to school, what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-engineer it yesterday since I got it wrong, and we are going to come. Well, I'm going to come back on. I don't know if you're able to around 7:30, 7:15, and actually do the days, right? So yesterday we had two possible scenarios. They're right here, right? London being breached, London not being breached.
Yeah.
We're going to go through and rebuild that part. This part we got completely wrong because I ignored a factor, right? The factor that I ignored, I didn't mean to ignore it. I don't remember what happened yesterday, but it was a detail that, you know, I missed, right? So you got Asia OU line and you got London OU line, right? So let's put those in, right? And we don't even have, oh yeah, we're not even going to put Asia OU line in anymore. All right. So so when we say London not breached, that means we can't get the alert for that is getting above London OU's line, which is the midline of this 230 to 330 range. That's an alert, and the confirmation would be this high, telling us that London has successfully been breached, right? And if that was the case, right, we should expect this kind of price action for the rest of London, New York 1, and New York 2, right? And we're going to rebuild this whole scenario so you guys can see, right? London not being breached, we should expect to see this scenario, right? Because I was in a rush yesterday and I didn't pay attention to details. It didn't cost me money. I still made money. Like I still stuck to my plan and traded it as such because remember, this isn't to trade around. This is to make historical decisions around. So the moment we breached the low of the day, it told me clear as day, hey, like we're not playing today.
No.
But because I could have had my rehearsals, my playbook out here, would have made it a lot easier to pick up on that trend a lot earlier. So right now, what we're going to say, we're going to go back into Power BI. right? And we are going to re-engineer this real quick, right? So we know that this range is from 1800 to 230. And the range that we use is from 1800 to 1930. And then the variable we use is from 1930 to 230, right? We can see that Asia went long, meaning it broke out of this side of the range, and it stayed long. So that would make it true. If it was going to be false, it would have breached this other side of the range, right? So we're going to go into our Power BI. Let's reset to start. We're going to put long true because we know that's what had happened. All right. Now, when we do this at 5 o'clock in the morning, majority of the time we have a pretty good understanding of where this 230 to 330 range is, and the variable from 330 to 7 is going to be. So in this case, this is the range, and we come short. We break to the downside, making it a short, right? And this is where the two scenarios come in. They allow us at 5:30 in the morning to figure out, because usually what I'm doing is as New York 1 happens, that range, New York 2 happens, that range, I'm updating my data. But for the viewers, until you guys get the annual subscription and we push out the data, all right, you guys are going to have to base it off of what I do in the mornings, right? Once we get this data pushed, like you will have the ability, live price, to make these updates, right? All right, so we see that London went short. So we're going to put London is a short. And then this is where we come in to saying, is London breached or not? So London being not breached, we'd click true, meaning it did not breach the other side of that range. We started with 4,180, right? And this brings us down to 410 days that these two variables have had happen. So London not breached means that we can expect this kind of price behavior. Then we're going to go over here and we're going to say false, saying that London was breached. And it's going to give us this kind of price behavior. Now that gives us an understanding of what to expect for New York 1. So at the time, New York 1 is from 7 to 8, and then whatever the variable for that is going from 8 to 11:30. So London not being breached would be a short and a true. Which we can expect this kind of price behavior, right? And then for New York pricing model 2, which is from 11:30 to 12:30 is the range, and then from 12:30 to 16:15 is the
Session.
session, yeah, where we pull the variables from. For London not being breached,
Just make sure that you've inverted that one, Mickey.
which one? This one?
Yeah, because NY1 you've marked as short above.
Hey, let's do that real quick. And we're not gonna have to worry about that on on when we get this live, right?
Hopefully. I'm
How?
working it right now.
Yeah. So saying New York 2, right? We're going to come back to that, right? Because this is when I want to train you guys on the live part of this and how you do that. So now let's go back to New York being breached. Wait, this is on false. Why is this on false? This should not be on false. This should be on true. This should be on short true, right? Which means, right? This is what it should look like.
More like it, actually.
Yeah. Well, that's the same, I believe. Yeah, it's the same. Close enough. All right.
Yeah.
So now we said that. Now we're going to go with London being breached, and we're going to put false there. We're going to put long here, right? And we're going to see what that plays out to look like, right? I think I already put this one in. Yeah, I already put this one in. All right. So now I'm going to come over here. It's not selected. Good. Because this was false, do I need to re-invert it?
No.
So anytime I put a short, I have to invert the next one.
Yes.
All right. All right. So we can see what this would look like, right? So this would say the low of the day happened either in Asia or in London, and then we put the high of the day between 10 and 11, and then we just went flat the rest of the day, right? So now, wait, where's this one in? All right, yeah, now we're going to press play. We're going to make decisions. Yesterday, this was the highest possible scenario, right? If this London OU line was breached. But because it was not breached yet, I jumped the gun to put this on my chart like this, right? And that's why I made the mistake. The highest probable scenario should have wherever settlement is, right around here, the settlement. I should have synced that to the settlement price, or at the very minimum, this new London OU line, right? Because remember, midnight had a 75%, settlement had they all stacked up on each other. A 74% probability of being returned to, and Globex had a 72% probability.
Yeah.
Right? So now, like, we should have been weighing more heavily on this until we got the movement to the London OU line, which would have alerted us that London is going to get breached, and that whole session was going to be a false day, right? So as this plays out, right? 1 minute, Jeremy. You have 60% of a false for your New York 1, right? Why would you put New York 1 as true? Can't really tell before 11:30. Yeah, you can tell. You can tell. You tell exactly after 8 o'clock, right? So, like, we're going to go through it right now. All right. So, yes, what Jeremy is saying is that New York 1 right here, right? If we put it on all, right there, you have a 44% of it being, what's the false at? Oh, 67% being a false, which is fine. We knew that with the new times. This is something that me and Kosa have already talked about. But like at 5:30 in the morning, what time do you use this settlement? 16:15. But for now, like this is going to be a variable that I select as it's happening, right? Like when it comes to as we build out these new time frames and we learn them, right? Like yeah, we might get fancy with it and put false right here. Like so, let's see, long all false, right? See how much that changes our New York 1 model, right? And that is if London was breached. Shoot. So the difference between that would be like this, right? Right? And that's definitely a good point, but like that's something that I'm going to use. I'm not going to select until like I'm just getting the very generic and linear at 5:30 in the morning 2D view of what's happening, right? So now we see that London was true. It was a short that was true, that we did not breach it at all, right? So now we're going into New York 1 from 7 to 8 is the range, and then afterwards, right? So now we go long, and this is what Jeremy was talking about. So we went long and it turned into false. So that 67% probability stayed true. And that's something we might in the future, switch, right? Like I'm new to this database, so I'm gonna back test it a couple of times and see where it goes, right?
We do have in there now some time data with the false to potentially anticipate that depending on the proximity of price, right?
Mm-hmm. So now what we can say is that false can fall up under London not breached, right? This is what it would look like if it was breached, stating that at 9:30 we should go high from 8 from here on out. We should go long, and then around 9:30 expect a drop, right? So we can start coming into our low of the day zone, and remember what I told you before. When we swipe through it like that, we have to respect that, right? Like in like that's when we turn our switch on. Whatever we have as the highest probability, you got to turn that completely off in your brain, right? So now we've got London. We have New York 1 being a long false, right? So if you have your data set in front of you, what you can do is you can come put it in as long and a false, right? Bringing you to New York 2, what to expect in New York 2, right? This is the most linear with nothing selected so far. This is what from 11:30 to 12 or 16:15 should look like. And so right there from 11:30 to 12:30, we have the range, right? And we see that it's a short. So if you're on your data set, you can come over here and you can press short, right? Which gives you this range right here. Or one thing that I'm going to be back testing during New York 2, does it make more sense to go where we are in relationship. So like I can press that it was below New York 1, right, which gives us a flat, right? So that's something I'm going to be back testing. I know it on the last time ranges that we used, the DR ranges. I know it like the back of my hand because we're doing new time sets and we're testing this. I'm at nighttime going through and back testing like days and contracts to see which one is going to work the best for the whole workflow process that we do in the morning, right? So, and then we know how the rest of the day played out. We can see at 9:30, right? And this goes kind of with what Jeremy was saying. When we were selecting, yeah, I understand that we had a 67% probability of being false, but like I tried to keep it at 5:30 in the morning because you got to realize when I'm doing this right here, I'm trying to keep as many steps out of this part of the process as I can, just to get a skeleton foundation of what you expect.
Yeah,
As price is moving along, right? Like I'm updating the data, right, to get the most accurate view. Because remember, this is historical, right? Live price doesn't have to do exactly what this says. It's just giving me a concept, right, of what to expect, right? Like we can narrow this down to every single detail of what price is done for that day and predict the next hour, and it can go completely against it, right? This is just to get us in the right frame of thinking of what daily momentum is showing us versus what it did in the past, right? So, with that being said, right now, you have this on your chart as such, right? You have these little clouds that show you the highest probable structure based off of the variable, right? But at the end of the day, like as you're trading this, right, you have to ask yourself, right, at 5:30 in the morning, right? Remember we had this structure stat 1 that had an 87% probability of being hit, right? As we were looking on our live chart, let me globalize this right there, right? We know that's going to get hit, right? We know that since the 3 o'clock hour, we are in a trend down, right? We're opening up the new hour below the 50%, right? And we're going to see the decision that's made for the next hour. The decision that's made is we get below previous hour 50%. We take out the low, momentum still down. We're getting below that structure stat 2. So if we're expecting that reversal at this point, we know that we need to develop the 5-9 box. We need to step over it, find footing on, get above previous hour mid, and then between the 6 and 7 o'clock hour, start reversing, right? That was going to be the case. And we're going to talk through this. So there's the step above, and finding footing now is what we're looking for. And we decide not to find footing, right? New hour is coming up. We're doing our initial push to establish the close price for the hour. Can we get to the previous hour 50%? So doing the same thought process. Now we're getting close to the low of the day zone, right? Which is near the 9:30, right? From the previous day. We step above previous hour 50%, right? We developed the 5-9 box, which I need to update that because it's not updating in replay mode. We fell right here to take out previous hour highs. You find footing somewhere on the 5-9 box, which decide not to appear. There we go. At this point, we see that if we wanted to start a position long of like 1 to 2 micros, we could justify that, right? Like we get above previous hour 50%, we step above the 5-9 box. The problem is this time we find foot in, so like you could easily taken along there, right? Starting with a reversal, not going full contract, as I've said many times. There's a different way you position size and risk profiles based off of nothing wrong with that, but I was just mentioning that given the probabilities, the default expectation should be absolutely. You're right. Which all right. So right now we're starting a new hour and we're opening it up at the 50% of this hour, the 6 o'clock hour, right? We need to make decisions, right? We're trying to see it make decisions. Spike up already. There you go. All right. And we lost it. So now we see that reversal, you should have been stopped out on that reversal, right? We know that we need to dig more into this low of the day zone, right? Right now, what clues do we know that have happened? We know that New York AM is now a long false, right? Which I thought I had this on. I must have erased it. Long false, New York 1. And that we did not breach London, right? We did not breach this London at all yet. So we're expecting the 930. Well, if we look up, like we started making a run up right around here. And then we dropped. This drop is supposed to be run up until 930 and then drop, right? We failed to do that, right? So this statistic is telling us it's a false move that happened from the New York AM was supposed to happen at 9:30, and you're going to see that majority of the time, Jeremy, right? Which is why, like, we pay attention to those little details with the time, right? Because that 9:30 to 10:30, remember I tell you, every 15, 5-minute, 10-minute between 1800 to around 8:45 has a high probability of being returned to, and that 9:30 candle usually firecrackers them all, giving them that probability, right? But for now, we're going to stick with this one because we failed to continue going up for the 8 o'clock hour, where that price model said we should have been going up, breaching London, which would have looked more like this, right? If that was going to be the case. All right. So now, there's no model out of the London being breached that told us that we should be expecting the low of the day here. That's when, like, this is the error that I made yesterday, right? The low of the day, from a probability standpoint, we should have breached London if we were establishing the low of the day. What the model supported, right, was that the high of the day had been established, right?
Yeah.
So 9:30 comes up, it tests this previous hour midpoint, the yellow line right here, in this 5-9 box, rejects instantly, we get below the 9:30. Right now at this point, we're making our decisions off of that 9:30 price and the 50% of this. Since the 50% of this was already violated, right, we're automatically expecting either a range style day or a DWP, right? All right, so the 10 o'clock hour, we're still within that low of the day zone, right? We haven't breached it yet. Now we're about to find out where my error came, right? and we decide to go lower. 10 o'clock hour, we are at the 50% of the 9 o'clock hour. When we open the 10 o'clock hour, we make decisions at that point. The decision we made is that we're going lower, and then we're going to follow the London not being breached model, because if the London was going to be breached, that should have been, this 930 should have been a gap chaser up, or if you don't know how to trade the 930, there should have been an up model, right? We won't get into that because I'm not teaching how to trade, because I get stupid fucking investigations and $25,000 to $75,000 fines when I do that. All right.
That's crazy, by the way.
Yeah. Didn't do nothing wrong. It is what it is. It's part of working in the industry. All right. So now what has Price told us? Price has told us 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hours as of now, we're going lower. We've been in a trend lower since 3 o'clock in the morning, right? And then the rest of the day, let me get my 5-9 boxes back on here. There we go. Rest of the day, we know how it plays out. Now during our New York lunch, right, from 11:30 to 12:30, right?
Yeah.
Right here. All right. So these hourly boxes tell you what to expect, right? So you don't even have to wait for this box to be putting in the highest data point, right? So right now, when it trend down, we keep going to the 50% of the previous hour and rejecting it, right? So it's safe to assume that the 11:30 to the 12:30 is going to be a short. However, we know from statistics that if this is going to, for the RTH, if this is going to turn around and come back and retest this 930 price in reverse for the day and put the low of the day in, which is a low probability low of the day, right? It's going to happen between the 11:45 and the 13:15, right? Somewhere within that time period. So we can still safely assume that, you know, this New York 2 is going to be a long true or a short false, right? But for now, live price hasn't confirmed anything to get your mind around that, right? So we're coming up testing, new hours coming in 6 minutes. Is this the test to test the previous hour 50%, which is going to be right here? We'll see. Right? Notice where we'll open in the new hour. Notice here we open at the 50%. Notice here we're open at the 50%. Notice here we tried to reach up to the 50% but couldn't, right? These are some details that you need to start paying attention to. And what do we do when we open lower like that in the 75% quantile of the previous hour? Like usually the first move is to drop lower, right? We can come over here. True, false. So far, we had long true in Asia, short true in London, right? Long false in New York 1. Now we have below and short, which selects them both. So far, we know that out of 4,190 days, there's only been 39 days that looked like yesterday, right? And this is the pricing model that it came with, right? That, well, this shows a long. The data is not synced here.
Is it inverted if you went? No, we didn't go short. Yes, we did. Didn't we go short in Y1?
No, New York 1
Long.
was a long false, so it
So
shouldn't be inverted.
it shouldn't be, but it might be. Have a look.
There's another thing, like these data sets aren't synced right. The ones when I click on the tabs.
Yeah. So London, New York 2 is not complete. I mentioned that in the note.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. And we need to have a discussion about London and NY1 in terms of flow, but that's off the record.
Yeah. All right. So with that being said, start with 4,180 days. Let's go with below. Remember, we're reengineering, so we can understand how to use the data. This still isn't showing.
Yeah, but just check its inversion at the moment. It might already be inverted from previous, right? Oh no, it doesn't matter if you reset. That doesn't change data settings.
Yeah,
There
it's
we are.
inverted. There we go.
Yeah, it
Anyway,
shouldn't be inverted though.
all right, cool. We got to work through that. Anyway, you can see that at no point did live price tell you to ever take a long, unless you're doing scalps, right? Except for right there, which has a beautiful long. But yeah, so that's the re-engineer session of the day, and I am going to jump on a call with you for a little bit and talk through this new data set that you sent me last night.
Yeah.
And then we'll be back on around 7:15 to actually do today's. Anyway, thanks for addressing. Sorry, what time do you? I think I've answered that. Yep. The float called a low of the day. Right. Cool, Jonathan. The float's a great concept. Jonathan uses the flout, and which I don't know why they call it the flout, but he does. All right. So with that being said, though, remember this chart is to align historical data. It doesn't mean it's going to play out to the tick. These clouds that we put on are like a historical data of, are you expecting higher highs and lower lows, or lower lows and higher lows and lower highs and all that stuff? Like, what are you expecting, right? It doesn't mean you come in here and trade it blindly. Like I've always said since day one, you have to have a live price component with statistics to confirm what you're seeing. I was wrong yesterday, but guess what? I still made money, which I'll release my statement this Friday in the interview I do with Austin for this month. But like, I still am able to make money because why? My trade systems are completely desynchronized from the historical data that the daily profile is showing, right? They have been back tested separately. So if I'm expecting, for example, if I'm expecting, you know, a high probable range, let's use the overnight. We know that from 1800 to 06 statistically, is a ranger market, right? So if I know that and I'm designing a trade plan that is to facilitate a range style trade, like I would be range trading this. And all I'm doing is using the historical data to confirm that today's market conditions will facilitate that, right? If I'm expecting trend in the 9:30 to 10 o'clock hour, right? Then I have back tested just like you've seen me do with the 9:30 model, which we back tested 3,000 days for. That goes specifically from 9:30 to 10 o'clock max, right? If I expect that market condition to be volatile, right, I backtest trade plans specifically for that, and then I use this historical data to confirm it, right? A lot of you guys, well, I'm not going to say a lot, but what I've seen a lot of traders do in the past is they just kept long in this, right? For example, let's rewind. As we hit our average 10-day range right here, right, and we're at 100% of it, right now they get into this mindset that they have to long it, and they have to ignore the fact that every single hour can't get above the previous hour midpoint, can't get above the high, all that stuff. They sit there and long it blindly, right?
Yeah.
They just long it blindly, right? Because we took out previous day's low. I have to long it, right? That failed you here, that failed you here, that failed you here, that failed you here, right? Oh, we took out a little bit lower, and we'll see how we took out previous week's low. All right, I have to blindly long it, right? Like, no, like you have to wait for price to be obvious when counter trading, right? When did price become obvious to take a long using the hourly boxes? Now you have a justification, 1400. You went low, momentum is still to the downside. Now H4 momentum is to the downside. You stepped above the 5-9 box, and now can you find footing on it? You found footing on it. Now can we get above previous hour 50%? Can we step above it and find footing somewhere in this area? We stepped above it. We're stepping above it. New hour open. We're above previous hour 50%. Right? Can we take out this high and this high? Can we maintain previous hour 50%? Right? We're testing it right now. We can. Let me put on the 5-9 box. Right? So now we have a possible momentum shift, right? Even though H4 hourly momentum's down, we stepped above, found footing on, this shows rejection right here. Like I would call this rejection, right? But because it's close to the new hour open, my mind resets instantly. We're above previous hour 50%. I want to see a test of that. I want to see step above, find footing on 5-9 to continue higher. Right? Stepping above, finding footing, going higher.
Good.
Right? So now, new hour open, Tesla earnings, yay! All right. So when you're short, when you're going long a market, like it has to meet those criteria, right? You can't just long random levels, previous day low, previous day high, low of the day, whatever, right? You're not just going to blindly long that. You have to wait for the displacement. How would the old model with Asia short true? I don't know, but I do have to jump. I have to take my daughter to school. I'll be back on at 7:15. How would the old model with Asia short true, long short true, and New York model have looked? Let's see real quick. Why would I put Asia short true? Asia was like, listen, like I'm not going to scenario build off of something where price has told me that that's not what happened. Asia was a long true. There's absolutely no reason for me to put Asia short true in here, right? Because that's not what happened. Like you see that in London, because at 5:30 you still have an hour to go. Like it can move up, especially when you've already hit the distribution. Then you can mess around with London short false, right? To see what that would look like. But for Asia, Asia's already been established. But you have to jump. I'll be back on around 7:15.